Right now, you're gearing up for a potential comeback to fighting, and a part of that is to get the joints nice and strong so that you can cope with 5 day week training, which you'll need to do to get in the ring again. And you've got about 20 kilos to lose from where you are. So you've lost 5 kilos so far. You've got a pretty strong goal there, man. What's the reason behind it? Why do you want to get back in the ring?
Well, as we mentioned in our one-on-one chat a while ago, my first Muay Thai fight that I did when I won that, it was such a natural rush of dopamine. So that that's probably number one reason for that dopamine hit, which we all look for one way or another. But also just to give myself a bit of purpose. I don't want to be sitting at home on my days off, not having done anything. And it's probably one of the things that over the span of my life, I probably one of the things I've been good at. So always good to stick with what you know, and yeah, gives you structure. Gives me a reason to do to improve my diet the way it has improved, and not get back into those patterns where say after I eat a meat box, I go to sleep and I wake up, my mouth, I just have that dry mouth. So things like that, where if I do fall back into these patterns, that's one thing where my body's not going to like it, but it's going to happen if I do that. So
yeah, cool. So being a former athlete myself, I can totally resonate with you wanting to get back in the ring, because it's one of those things that I think to myself, man, have I missed the boat? Like, is this was my last game playing rugby the last game that I'm ever going to play? And I guess a lot of people listening to this might feel the same way. They might be former sportsmen or sportswomen, and they've maybe had an injury. Like, what stopped you from fighting back then?
Well, it was actually during one of my last fights. My shoulder actually dislocated during the fight, and obviously it was a doctor stoppage, and I had to get surgery for it if I wanted to improve it in the long term. After surgery, though, I just fell into that comfort zone and stayed there for quite a number of years. I would say maybe like three years consistently, and from walking around at about 65 to 66 on a normal day, and 63 on a good day, I got up to about 80 to 85 kilos, which is what I'm at now. And then as I've gotten older, had that third injury, which was the ACL, and that got me ballooning even more. So right now it's a process of trying to reverse that.
Yep.
And it's been good. I've made strides, but I'd say I'm halfway there. So
yeah. So we're strengthening your shoulder up at the moment with some face pulls, and we'll add some other stuff in there. I did my ACL, and then it was my shoulder. So kind of the reverse. You did your shoulder, then your ACL. It's funny how these things work. The old body kind of breaks down on you at some point, and then if you don't obviously repair it, then you just go down this big sliding slope. And with the sports background, do you think having the mental fortitude and the discipline that you once had has helped you have such a success in a short period of time over the last couple of months?
I think it's definitely helped. Because all the building blocks for what you are as an adult, I feel like you have them as a child or as a teen. Similarly to how we use boxing, for example, the athletes that start when they're younger and develop those skills while their brain is developing, when they get older, they'll have the edge on people who have started a little bit later. Maybe they've started when they're 18 and 19, but if they're starting at 11 and 12, then as their brain is developing, those skills are aligned right with that development, and so it's just going to be another level. Not that you can't do well when you start late, but I've been developing that mental strength since I was 13, 14. So
yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, because a lot of people get stuck in the cycle of comparison and comparing their progress to somebody else's, and you don't really know that person's chapter that they're up to unless you have a conversation like this. Just like with you having that background since 13 or 14, was it like a switch that flicked on as soon as you signed up?
A switch in what way?
In motivation, application, like implementation. I told you what to do, and it looked like you just did it.
Yeah. Because basically, I didn't want to mess around anymore. The switch I'd say it got to a point where if you're not taking care of your body, if you're not taking care of yourself mentally, then at a certain point, I would say almost all human beings would be like no more, and if your body's telling you no more, then eventually your brain and the mental side of it will align with that.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say maybe not down to that. Probably wouldn't be down to my sporting background, but you see people all the time who, you know, they'll get to a point where they're not happy with their weight or how they look, with no sporting background, and then they'll decide, all right, yeah, this is a turning point. This is a turning point where I'm gonna shred, or, you know, I'm gonna bulk up, or I'm gonna improve my diet, and they do it. You know, sporting background or no. So
Yeah, we call that a snapping point, or gun to the head. I'd rather shoot myself than stay where I am, and it's that point that really enacts massive action.
What was the thing that really helped you the most to lose that first 5 kilos?
First 5 kilos, so that would have been around the Christmas period, the New Year period. It might be a cliche, but, you know, New Year, new me, right? Yeah, no, I didn't want to enter that new year the same version of myself that I would have been 6 months ago. And I knew that to do that, I would have had to start earlier than when the new year began. So, you know, I started with the program in November, it was a good building block to enter into the new year. You know, ready to go, ready to get back into boxing, ready to fix my diet, ready to, you know, cut out other things that wouldn't be helpful to, you know, my body and my, you know, my development. So, and now in the new year, you know, first month gone, January, you know, which is usually after January, I hear the you know, the meme, right, that a lot of people quit after the first month, and now we're in February. I don't see myself quitting anytime soon.
Yeah.
I've got the building blocks there, and if I do slip a bit, then I know how to get back on it this time around.
Yeah, wicked, man. I think you've done this perfectly. As you started when you didn't feel like you had all your ducks in a row, and because you did start taking action, then you were able to kind of put those proverbial ducks in a row as you went, and that built momentum. And as you're saying, built momentum into the year. What would you say to someone who's just kind of sitting on the fence because it's just not the perfect time?
I'd say, look, you don't have to jump into it straight away. You know, in the past, I myself, you know, when my joints were really healthy, but I'd not been back into the gym. You know, I'd say to myself, oh, yo, you know, I'm gonna try and go twice a day, and you know, fix my diet up right away, and da 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 da. It just gets to burnout really quick. So, you know, you have this desire and motivation off the bat, but it's a fire that burns brightly, but it burns quickly. So I would say start little. Like this time around, you know, before I even started with the program, I did you know, small stuff like push-ups, sit-ups, squats. Those are things that, you know, you don't need to walk into a gym for. You can just do them on the spot. And I started with 5. 5 on the first day, and okay, 5's easy enough. Let's go for 6 the day after, and then 7 the day after, then 8. And, you know, I got to a point, you know, where I was doing 20, maybe 2 sets of 20. You know, so just start small, and you know, hit those milestones. You know, it might not look like much, but, you know, after a week or two, if you're increasing those increments by just a little bit, and then maybe a month passes by and you think, oh wow, that's a lot further than when I started with 5 push-ups, 5 sit-ups, 5 squats that particular day. So just start small and just see how you go.
Yeah, good advice. And I recall you telling me you were onto a good thing with your training. Would what I had to offer stuff that up? What was it that kind of made you think, oh yeah, I really should get some outside perspective on this?
Well, I feel like with what I was doing before, I'd say it was one of those fad diets where, okay, you know, and it was a 1 meal a day where I limit myself to 1,200 calories. But I always thought to myself that, look, this isn't something I want to be doing for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? That's one meal a day, 1,200 calories. It's certainly not enough for an athlete, and it's certainly not enough for your average person. You know. So when you messaged me and, you know, you laid out that program and the cookbook, and in terms of the nutrition, but also, you know, it's something that I look forward to. You know, making my own meals. They're nutritious, and the most important thing, you know, is that they taste good as well. Because if it was just, you know, lean chicken with no seasoning, or, you know, and veggies, then I'd probably jump off real quick. And it was at a point where it was like, okay, it was either eat, you know, healthy but really boring and really bland, or either I go back to my meat boxes and HJs again. And I feel like, you know, starting this program with you that I've gotten that good health advice, and I'm eating more fruit, more vegetables, different sources of proteins. I'm getting in chicken, I'm getting in beef, I'm getting in eggs, I'm getting in ham. Different sources, different nutrients. So I've just picked what I like best out of the cookbook. It's which I think has been key as well. So
yeah, because if you don't eat it, there's no good being on the meal plan. So safe to say you like the cookbook.
Sorry, mate.
Is it safe to say you like the cookbook?
Yeah, mate. I think it's been really solid, and like you said, it's just a guide, right? So it's just a base to help you start off, because like I mentioned, a lot of the recipes had pork mince in them, and I thought, oh, okay, maybe well, what about beef mince? And beef mince is fine. It's a lot, of course, the pork mince is cheaper, but I feel that I enjoy beef a bit more. So
totally,
why not have that?
Yeah, there's a modern body fuel protocol document in this group. I'm not sure if you've got it yet, but it lists out all the first class proteins that you can essentially swap out for any first class protein. So pork mince, you go out for beef mince, turkey mince, chicken mince, any mince, right? And the same goes for anything. I guess that's where a lot of people come unstuck, is they read a recipe and they think, oh, man, I've got to stick to this. And it's like, no, that's just your framework. And then you can get creative when you understand it. And that's what it sounds like you're doing. You're understanding nutrition more and more as time goes on. Like, just by you saying how much variety you're having, I can see you've picked that up somewhere from me, and saying variety is the key to optimal health, right? So those sorts of things you don't learn until you actually take the time to consume that information. And no, mate, I'm super proud of you for hanging on so far and doing so well so far. So 12 months from now, you're going to be training 5 days a week in the boxing gym for an hour at a time. Is that the main goal?
Yeah. Well, right now I'm training an hour, but when I get to like the more competitive, like where they're training for a competition, it's actually 2 hours at a time most times. So 2 hours. It's nothing I haven't done before. So that jump in time is all good.
So total volume about 10 hours a week, and now you're at around 2 hours. So we got to 5x that total volume of boxing training in 12 months. Yeah, cool. So when you start to think about that, then you can easily say, all right, so for 2 months, we're going to hit 2 hours of volume. And then the next 2 months, we're going to start to step it up and maybe go to 4 hours of volume. And then 6 hours of volume, 8 hours of volume, 10 hours of volume. And that's how we periodize. There'll probably be a month or two in there where you go like to 6 and you come back down to 4. But then by going backwards, you then can go back to 6 and go harder, and then bring it up to 8 and then 10. So that's kind of from the volume perspective. One thing that you probably haven't heard me say, but there's a really cool equation, and that is the strongest athlete always wins. And the equation goes like this: there's an A and a B rower, both got the same amount of experience, same amount of skill. They're literally identical athletes, besides from one thing. One athlete can deadlift 50 kilos for a 1RM. The other athlete can deadlift 100 kilos for a 1RM. Which one of those would be working harder based on a race pace? If they were just going for a 5 kilometer row and they were trying to keep up with each other, who do you think would be working harder?
Working harder. It'd probably be rower A, who can only deadlift
exactly
50.
the weaker one. So just to keep that race pace, they're working twice as hard as the one who's double as strong. So then when you extend it out over 5 kilometers, who's going to have the most energy to sprint that last 100 meters? It's going to be the stronger athlete. And that's why the stronger athlete always wins. And you can take that analogy and you can apply that to being in the ring. How many rounds would you do in a pretty tough fight?
Well, starting out, you'd probably do three rounds of 2 minutes. So that's 6 minutes in the ring, and then you'll have your breaks, which are a minute. So or 30 seconds a minute. 30 seconds.
Yeah, cool.
No, actually, it's a minute. Sorry. Yeah, it's been a while.
That's right. Yeah, cool. So that's where we want to get you to a point where you're in that third round or that last round, and you still got some in your tank because you haven't used it all up in those first 2 rounds. Hopefully, you're just strong enough to knock them out in the first round.
That would be ideal. Or just be a fighter who can there's a lot to what you're saying about working hard, being the stronger athlete, working less. I'd prefer to be in there 3 rounds, but just not get hit at all. Just pick them off. Yeah. Just have a fun. Obviously the other guy won't be having fun, but that he's not me. So tough.
Man. Cool. Is there anything at the moment while you've got me, you want to ask, you're unclear on, anything you want to know more about in terms of what's next?
Well, in regards to my diet, so I've been eating from the cookbook. One of the recipes that I've recently got into starting enjoying is the tropical cheesecake. So you mentioned 2 serving glasses, and then you make it with whatever ingredients. That would count as 2 serves. But me, I'm putting it into a bowl and making it, and so it'd be like 2 serves in a bowl. But is it okay if I'm eating those 2 serves, or should I just maybe half it and then eat one half now, or eat one half now and then put the other half in the container? Because right now I'm eating the whole bowl because
That's a really that is an epic question. That's a really good question. So the way I think about that cookbook is it's level 1. Level 1 is just starting to get introduced to having meals that have protein, carbs, and fats in them without knowing what a protein, carb, and fat is. Level 2, and you'll see this in the guide section of the group. Level 2 is now you're eating that stuff and you're implementing it. Now let's teach you what a first-class protein is, what a low energy plant and a high energy plant food is, what an omega-3 rich food is, so that you understand what those things are, right? We haven't even spoken about grams of anything, portion size of anything. Level 3, that's where we start to look at that. We start to look at, all right, is Sam getting 25 grams of protein in every meal? Check. Okay, now he's getting 25 grams of protein in every meal. Do we need to increase that protein? And most of the time, yes, we do. So if you're eating, knowing all this, if you're eating 2 serves, so you're eating my serve and my wife's serve, but you're still losing 55 kilos, and each week you're still losing weight, what does that tell me? That tells me whatever you're doing right. So keep doing what you're doing. And we keep doing what you're doing to tease out and to take advantage, because we're running with this thing, we're taking advantage of as little effort as possible to get the best possible result. This is where a lot of people go wrong, is they feel like, oh, I've got this thing down pat, I'm going to add more effort, I'm going to go harder, I'm going to try and do this twice as fast, and that's where they really F it up. So for me, from a coaching perspective, I'm sitting back, I'm getting your check-in, I'm getting your body weight each week, and I'm like, Sam's doing good. He's just going to keep going more of the same place until we see maybe 3 to 4 weeks of a stagnant weight or an increase in weight. And it's at that point, that's when we've identified your first plateau. It's actually a pretty exciting time, because then it's like, all right, cool, how can we change your strategy now to help you break through? I don't know if you saw Scott's story the other day that popped up, but Scott has had about 2 major plateaus and peaks, like increases in weights, before we've dropped the ass out of him again. And believe it or not, how we did that, the first time was I increased his plant food in each meal. I told him to eat more. Yeah. And then the second time, we did the same thing. I told him to eat more again. And what that does is it kind of creates more nutrients for the body, but less space for just the other incidental crap that you might be having you're not even aware of. So to answer your question, keep going with what you're doing. You're probably getting, I can't think of the recipe off the top of my head, but I would say that there's about 200 grams of ricotta cheese in that recipe. So for 200 grams, 250, yeah. So you're having the 250, in about 250 grams of ricotta cheese, I reckon you're getting that 25 grams of protein, which is probably why the weight's coming off you. You're getting enough protein in that meal.
Yeah, that's good. I'll keep doing that, and yeah.
Wicked, man. Yeah. So when you think about nutrition, think about it as like lifting weights in the gym. If you think of mince is a first-class protein, but there's other better ones as well. So we keep you on the mince for as long as it takes for you to hit that plateau. And then a nutritional change might be, all right, Sam, it's time to ditch those mince meals and let's go to a solid chicken breast meal. You might try the stir fry instead of the pork bolognese. We might go from pork bolognese to chicken breast and do the stir fry instead. Or you might do like the tasty AF fish, right? Because that's more of a solid protein. We might even throw some steak in there, who knows? But each of these little changes, it pushes you further along that body compositional pathway to more muscle, less fat, more energy, all the good stuff. Well, mate, I've had you for the last 45 minutes and 3 technical errors. So I really appreciate your time and your persistence. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Yeah.
And as always, reach out if you need anything.